This is the last episode for season 3. We're floating into summer here in Nashville. So if you need to find me, I'll be shoveling mulch and pruning tomatoes because it's June and I'm drawing close to the earth for a hot date with some homemade salsa. Are you with me? Which is part of God's grand design for summers in Tennessee. This is part of the divine plan. Welcome back to the ecoChristian podcast. We're exploring what it means to be Christian on planet Earth. I'm your host, Caleb Cray Haynes. I legit cannot believe we've done 3 seasons of this goodness, this tasty goodness, the ecoChristian podcast. And as suspected, there are miles of compost left unturned still. Depths yet to be dived into. There's more adventure around the corner, mate. I don't know what that was. And while a break is needed, friends, I'm already pumped about some creative juices for the upcoming season 4 of this situation right here. So I'm looking forward to leaning into more joy, more laughs, and more collaboration with great people out there making waves for God's creation. Or maybe riding waves, Or if you're like me, you're a 40-year-old dad, almost pro-vacation boogie boarder level for God's creation. I don't know, we may have lost the metaphor there somewhere, but yes. So I just want to say, of all the things going, quote, wrong on planet Earth today, there are more people than ever who have woken up to do something right, to stand up, to do the work before them, to use their voice in ways they have never done. And so it's so encouraging. And I mean, have you seen these communities rejecting data centers? Have you seen the number of small farms popping up? Have you seen all the conversations happening around creating a different kind of life, an earthbound life? Earthbound Christian, get it on your summer reading list. Good things are happening, friends, and I'm so glad that you and I are a part of all that. Things are cooking. So, today, I've got something really cool here for this last episode of Season 3. You see, for the first time, maybe in podcast history, we don't really know, you're getting a buy one, get one opportunity. Over the last few months, I've been emailing with fellow author and podcaster Courtney Ellis. She hosts The Thing with the Feathers podcast and also just released a wonderful book called Weathering Change. And so what you're about to hear is a dual interview. We saddled up for a fun conversation on her book and my book, recorded it, and you're listening to it today in 2 locations that can be found here in this podcast that you're hearing and with Courtney's podcast, The Thing with the Feathers. You can't make this stuff up. It's the beginning of summer and we're starting off with a big double dip situation. So stay tuned to the end, friends, as we have a great conversation on what it means to be mortal, finite human beings who are weathering change. This is so good. I love what's happening right now. So we are doing something that maybe has never been done. Who knows? I don't know. We're going to say it's a first time thing in the universe, but it is for our podcast at least. So this episode is actually going to air on 2 places. It's going to air on The Thing with Feathers, and it's going to air on the ecoChristian podcast, which is your podcast and my podcast. Are coming together to make this child, so it's really fun. Yeah. So we've explored each other's work a little bit and are legit meeting and talking as humans for the first time together. So I love it. And we're gonna just pull on some threads from each other's material and books and kind of the work that we're doing. So it's kind of like it's a 2-for-1 situation. It's what all Americans love, which is a good BOGO. Yeah,
We're
yeah,
going to
yeah,
see how
yeah.
we do because we're both the head chef, but how do you have two head chefs in the kitchen? We're going to
Yeah,
find our
yeah.
way.
I'm
Someone's got to be
fine
the
making
sous chef.
sides. I'm fine making the sides. Yeah, yeah,
That's actually what I do at our house. My husband is like meat guy or main guy, and I'm just around the edges. So
yeah,
we'll
yeah, yeah,
find our
yeah.
way.
Pulling it together. Love that so much. Awesome. Yeah, so and last as so many others have been, I've been all the way through weathering change, and it's really been on point for me because um I'm turning 40, and no, I'm crossing into my 40s, and so anyway, I feel like I'm literally weathering change right now, but and you know, and anyway, no, it's such a good read, and there's so many things in there that are life-giving, and so it's fun. There's so much stories, and you tell your own story and all the different facets to it there. But I'm wondering for folks who haven't heard of you, maybe we could take a step back real quick. Um, and you're coming at this, you're kind of like, what's a word for a is it a bird or a bird expert? The thing with the feathers. So you're coming at this from this sort of kind of special birding place. I'm gonna say. Sorry, this is where I'm botching on my notes. What I should have kept to the script here, but yeah. Tell me a bit more, like how you got to this book compared to maybe some of your other work.
Yeah, I always tell people I'm not an expert. I'm not an ornithologist. I'm not an ecologist. I don't have any degrees in this. I'm just an enthusiast and I love birds. And
Yes.
I think we learn different things about the natural world by studying it, but we also learn different things by loving it and observing it and living with it. So um,
Mm,
the book came to me as most of my books have, as a book I really wanted to read that didn't exist. And so I write the books that I want to read that don't exist. And I have just always been a person who struggled with change. I don't handle change
mm,
well. I don't like change. I don't seek change. I fear change. I fight change. And, I have memories of being a 3 year old, 4 year old girl and having my dad sit me down and say, Courtney, you have to learn how to hit the curveball. And I'm
ooh,
like, I'm for sports metaphors don't work for me, Dad, but I know what you're saying. I just, any change in the routine was hard. And so the writing of the book was a real crucible of kind of having to face down some of my own struggles and fears. And I'm 43, I'm a few years ahead of you. And that,
mm.
all the dashboard lights start blinking at once around the time you're
Uh-huh.
40 in your body.
Warning,
And
warning.
right,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
y'all take your turn. Like, why is everything malfunctioning at once? And
yeah.
so trying to seek out a theology of change, of healthy change. How do we weather change well? And how can witnessing the many, many, many ways the natural world copes with change, understands change, undertakes change, help us to manage it in our own lives? And Caleb, I was so excited to come across your book because I think our books came out on the same day just a few months
Nuh-uh.
ago. And so I was out on social media on my book launch day looking around and I was like, "Oh, wait, this is a book I need to get my hands on." And I just it is so prescient and it is so just right for the time that we're living in, that tagline of flourishing within limits in the age of infinite growth, like you're every businessman's nightmare. But this
Mm,
is what we need to talk about. So, this idea that God given limits are a good thing. How did this book come to
mm.
you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I see what you did there. You just threw it right back. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We're
Yes,
going to play baseball.
absolutely. That's right. Yeah. So, doing this work of, philosophically and theologically excavating our, I'm going to say, quote unquote, environmental age we're in, the Anthropocene, climate change, whatever you want to call it, and just digging and digging and digging, and eventually, if you dig long enough, you're going to realize that uh, the bottom layers of all of these environmental crises and what's going on in within God's creation today, is ultimately, it's ultimately about how we've, I'm going to say, gone to battle against um, God's design. honestly.
Mm.
Like that we've actually, in some ways, waged war on uh, on limits, and never really stopped to consider that these limits are here not just for our good, but actually for our flourishing. And, you
Yeah.
could track that all the way to Genesis, of course, of like, we've always assumed that we could consume anything we want, eat from whatever tree in the garden we want to eat from, and that there wouldn't be any consequences. And so, yeah, but what if, yeah, yeah. And so, um, yeah, so a lot in the book too, you do get into, you said every businessman's nightmare, and that is true. And so that is so true. And so it really, once you really go down that rabbit hole, you realize, oh, yeah, it has to do with everything from like our need to make sure we've got mascara on before we leave the house, but it also has to do with capitalism and the way that we've actually structured our economy and the way that we commute to work and the way that we're so darn busy and all the stuff. And so yeah, you really begin sort of unraveling a lot of things at the edges in this. And anyway, sorry, I'm just ranting now, but yeah, there's so much there that I really enjoy writing about, and that was something that I found really refreshing because I discovered that you were also coming at that in its own way. And
Mm.
I don't write a lot about change in the book the way that you grab it, and I thought it was really refreshing to sort of see how you break it into, those, you talk about those four parts. You talk about preparation and curiosity and adaptability and resilience. And I thought that was kind of a helpful framework to unpack that. Does that feel accurate though?
Yeah, for sure. For sure, for sure. I think the one that was most surprising to me as I was studying and researching, it's in many ways that's my favorite part of writing is I just go to the library and take down a whole shelf about trees or take down a whole shelf about seahorses. And I'm like, this is what we're doing today. But to discover what a big part of experiencing change in the natural world, what a big part curiosity has to play. Because we
Mhm.
talk a lot about adaptation, we talk a lot about resilience, we talk about preparation. There's the squirrel, he's putting away his acorns for the winter. But
Yeah.
that idea of curiosity and how, when faced with something new, with something different, whether it's a migrating bird or, it's a crow in your backyard that just tipped over the trash can, that animals are inherently curious. And there's this gentleness to curiosity. And so
Mhm.
often when we experience change, we get really up in our fight or flight or freeze or fawn response. But when we can approach change with curiosity, it allows us to be gentle with ourselves. It allows us to be gentle with others and make space for experiencing that change in a way that
Mhm.
is a little bit slower, a little bit softer, so that we can find our way in. And often we struggle with that. We will jump first to judgment. This should be easier for me. Why am I struggling with this? Or we'll jump to just on to the next thing. But
Mhm.
curiosity allows us this gracious space to say, what am I feeling? And how is this sitting with me? And as we learn to do that with ourselves, we can learn to do it with one another. So
Mhm.
you have these great scenes in your book where the one that really stood out to me was you're at a friend's house for dinner and they're washing dishes and they keep letting the water run. And you're having this ethical conundrum of like, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to say something, but
Yeah.
I'm dying. Like I'm dying here. I see the oceans being drained.
Oh.
Like I see the reservoirs going dry. And so learning to offer those gentle, curious questions rather than questions of judgment when it comes to change, when it comes to environmental concerns, is something that I'm really seeking to grow in personally, grow in with my congregation, teach my congregation to practice with one another,
Mhm.
um, because change is hard. And if there are any ways we can make it a little bit easier, a little bit gentler on ourselves and others, and that goes for making those sorts of positive environmental changes. Is like you said, if you judge someone, they shut down. But when you have relationship and can find those gentle ways in, suddenly there's a conversation and there's possibility of healthy, non-resentful change.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's maybe one of the reasons it's been, or at least felt like an uphill climb with environmental work is because and we have sort of every right to just use words like emergency or alarm or very urgent, and that that inherently comes with a bit of like abrasiveness. And so, what does it mean to hold these two like postures together within the same moment with the people around us, like knowing that like this sort of like 911-ness that we feel like we need to come at environmental care and change with isn't gonna create any change. It's only gonna like swing the opposite way. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think maybe like in the first chapter I write some about, we're never going to like we find everything that people love and then we tell them how it's bad for it's like you love
Yes.
football, well, sucks to be you because it's an environmental catastrophe, and so of course folks are not going to find their way in like that. And so yeah, I'm wondering, so it's kind of a random question, but you just kind of got done with a book tour, which is so cool. I'm kind of jealous. And
I mean, I put it together myself. I can tell you how to do
yeah, yeah, yeah. Great, great. Yeah.
it.
What you're going right. Yes. So I'm wondering like what some of the things surfaced for you on that tour with the folks who were sitting with some of this and sitting with your work and and thinking about embracing aging with gentleness and whatnot.
Yeah, the more I get out there and talk to people, whether it's at my church or on the book tour or just in the community, all my kids play basketball. So I spend a lot of sideline time with basketball parents, is like everyone's going through stuff. No one is having an easy time for the most part. And I live here in Orange County where there's a lot of wealth and there's a lot of ease and there's a lot of comfort. And even so, people are going through it, whether it's relationally or with health things. And so just, you know, the more you can find out where people are before you delve into the thing that's on your mind, the better it sticks. And so even when I'm up there speaking, I like to kind of gauge the temperature of like, where's everybody at? And, I did a lot of speaking at churches, and churches, it helps to know what's standing in the room with you. So I preached at a church on Mother's Day in Lakeside, Ohio, Methodist Church, and they told me as I was walking in, our senior pastor is retiring. He has 2 more Sundays. And it's like, oh, that's a big thing that's in this room. You are about to go through tremendous change. And now the change has a name. In addition to whatever personal changes you're going through, you also have this massive change of the pastor who's been here for 38 years, has 2 more weeks. Like, this is significant. So I think just understanding to lead with kindness and to lead with tenderness and to not assume people are where you think they are or going through what you think they might be going through. And once people understand that you're there with them, there's this wonderful openness of, yeah, this is hard, so where is God, and how is God speaking to us, and how is God leading us? And since change is so constant, there must be something important about it, or God wouldn't drag us through it so often.
Mm,
So where is the goodness of change? There's no growth without change. What is the Lord saying to us in the midst of this tumultuous season?
mm,
But it's tricky, right? And eventually we can't absorb change when it comes too hard and too fast. And that's what we're seeing with the climate. That's what we're seeing with the environment is, migratory birds can adjust their migration window by a day or 2 days or 3 days. They can't really adjust that window by 3 weeks. They don't have the body fat content. They haven't been able to increase their diet to be able to make that. So when is change too much? Because we can all be pushed to that point.
Mm,
And that's a lot
that's
of what your book is I think trying to address is this: we're not limitless. And I'm
mm.
gonna read something from your coffee curtains and the human condition,
Oh
chapter
gosh.
4.
Okay.
I have underlined things all over this. I love this book, Caleb.
Oh, fun.
Um, you write, our very lives have become an open pit mining operation. Our data is mined, our time is mined, our resources is mined. But worse than that, our very spirits are mined, our humanity is mined. We're trapped in a slave system whose business is to keep us content and climbing for more, so that we become clueless to our own capture, exploitation, and slavery. And I love the way your book really highlighted some of these things that are being done to us, but also some of these things we are doing to ourselves. We're complicit in our own enslavement. And your encouragement to take a step back from all of that and really evaluate where we are at. What kind of
Mm.
reception have you gotten to the ideas like that in this book?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's all still really fresh. But I think kind of similar to, kind of sounds like some of your conversations. Yeah, I think that there is a incredible hunger for folks just to connect on the human level, right? And what I mean
Mhm.
by that is I think we're always sort of navigating these temptations to save face and to put on a good show and we do this in all sorts of ways, but really kind of I'm going to say on the quote unquote inside, communities and people are just starving to show up um
Yeah.
in within like the reality that is the sometimes painful and struggle changing wrinkling aging life, and kind of
Yeah.
like you were saying, like you're talking to these groups and these church groups and like people are just busy, and we're doing our stuff and we're
Mhm.
taking our kids to soccer practice and we're doing all the things, and these are the days and the hours that make up a life. And so if we're showing up and saying like, okay, um, if you're gonna have to overcome even more now, you're gonna have to do even more overcoming and transcending and climbing in order to lock arms and save the planet. And I think yeah, I think underneath this, what I'm interested in, and it's and what I'm catching in your book as well is like, oh, what if instead it's actually the other direction? What if
Yeah.
this has less to do with climbing and more to do with descending back down to the ground?
Mm. Mm.
And and yeah, and I think underneath that, that's I feel like maybe, there's just hasn't been good language for that, especially in the church or just in general, and so we're not really sure. We don't have good language for maybe what we're craving or what we're trying to see, but we know it has something to do with authenticity. It has something to do with vulnerability and transparency and honesty, and and it's always so. I'm going to say disappointing that it seems like we still, even in many local church settings, can't get there.
Yeah.
And this is what I love about. I think I referenced some of Breathing Underwater, which is Richard Rohr's book on like the 12 steps, and
Mm.
and he talks about how the 12 steps, like AA, like man, they're just really grabbing this by the tail. Like how could the church get in on this kind level of like sinking down into our humanity with one another, and humanity as it is again bestowed upon us as a gift. Like this is like all these
Yeah.
limits, like this is actually part of the design. Like it's not like and I think that's a little kind of a flipped switch of like, oh, this is like part of the beauty.
Yeah,
And
it's a feature, not a bug, right? And we
yeah,
treat it like
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
bug. We treat
that's
aging
right.
like a bug. We treat change like it's
Yeah.
a bug, but these things are God given.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and there's theology there you could spend a lot of time on, but I think at the end of the day, yeah, it's you can see it all over the natural world, and that's one of the things I really love about your work, and because you have such great observations, especially of just like the animal kingdom and all the stories. There's so many things. It would just be for a total spoiler alert. But you like I just remember you were writing about like the how do you say it, the mobile array and just all the cool features of like God's creation. And anyway, really good stuff. It actually made me think of this really cool moment. This is a totally side thing, but um, there was this time I was down in Florida a few years ago, and I kid you not, like this, as I say this, it sounds like it's made up, but my friend and I are there on the beach, and it's sunset, and we're just kind of looking out over the water, and right as we're looking, this giant, I'm gonna say it looked like a giant manta ray or something, jumps out of the water. I kid you not, like into the sunset, and back down again. And we just look at each other like, you saw that, right? Like if no one else had seen that, I would have questioned like, did I see that? Anyway, but I love,
Yeah.
yeah, you give such really cool observations. And I think it is, I'm wondering if you have a favorite there that you share in the book that you'd be willing to talk about.
Oh, I mean, I learned so much in writing these books and in doing the research for them. But the mobile arrays, what I love about the mobile arrays is we know so little about them. We have tried to study them. There's a Blue Planet special that talks about them. There's a Nat Geo special, and basically they come to the end of themselves and they're like, we don't really know anything else about them. They just disappear into the bowels of the ocean. We do know they give birth to live young, but they're not mammals, so they actually have eggs inside and the eggs hatch inside the mother and then the live young come out, which is just crazy. And we only know this because one did this for us in an aquarium setting because they have their babies in the depths of the ocean. And so I feel like the best way to get people more interested in caring for the earth and creation care and stewardship and all of these things is joy, it's delight, it's wonder. And the more
Yes.
we study the natural world, the more those wells open up. And so yes, the world is on fire, and telling people the world is on fire isn't motivating. Unfortunately, it should be, it should be like, gosh, we should do something about this. But it's that joy of, I became a birder about 6 years ago, and I remember saying on Twitter, back when it was Twitter in a much more pleasant place than it is today,
Yeah, yeah,
saying
yeah.
in 20 years I'm going to get into birding. And all these birders commented, don't wait 20 years because you'll miss out on a lot of the birds that are here now that might not be here in 20 years. And it was this
Wow.
real moment for me of like, dang, that's close to home. That's serious. That's real. And then I started bird watching. I bought myself a cheap pair of binoculars and started to discover this incredible world that had been around me the whole time that I'd never paid any attention to, learning to speak this new language that was being spoken all around me. My poor husband now only wants to go on dates indoors, or he knows he doesn't get any of my attention. I'm like, oh, that's a Swainson talk. He's like, focus, Courtney.
Yeah,
But
that's amazing.
right, it has both filled me with delight and it has broken my heart 100,000 times, because the more you learn about the natural world, the more you learn what we are doing to it, what we have done to it, what we continue to do to it. And so there's kind of this two-sided motivation of, I don't want to lose the things that I love, but also because I love them, I now know and see what's happening to them. And so, um, yeah, to answer your question, what's the favorite animal in the book? They're all my favorite. It's like, what's my favorite kid? Well, whichever one's right in front of me at the moment. But I
Yes.
love that in a world where people are just looking like, what's the revenue for the next quarter? And we have to keep growing, and things have to go onward and upward forever. You did write a book about humility, about descent. I was taking the kids to school the other day and we were listening to a song by the Porter's Gate called Christ is Lower Still. And my middle kid was like, this is not an okay song. Like, Jesus is higher. Jesus is the highest. Jesus is lifted up. Jesus is, like, he's pastor's kid. He's got all the theology. And I
Yeah,
was
he's
like,
got it.
so
Wow.
let's talk about that, because what does it mean that Christ has descended for us? And what does that teach us about what we are called to do to one another? And I don't know of another worship song like that because we like to, lift his name on high rather than acknowledge the humility of Christ. And so I so
Yeah.
appreciate that your book points to that. You talk about ways that we can walk down the ladder. I'm gonna read
Yeah.
another excerpt because this is what I do. Because you have a great quote. This is back chapter 9. Confession and forgiveness are the tools that help us descend our ladders. If we are going to be part of mending God's broken creation, it will involve seeking a closer relationship to the earth, advocating for our healthy soil and animal habitats. It will do the work of lifting up our indigenous siblings, empowering the women around us. Yes, thank you. And following our children's lead. That often these are the teachers, right? The animals and the plants are our teachers. Our indigenous siblings are our teachers. The people who are on the margins who we don't often listen to, the children in our midst. And Jesus talks about this, right? He's like, look at
Yeah.
the children, like, let them come to me. This is who the kingdom of heaven belongs to. And I think it's NT Wright who talks about how Jesus doesn't welcome children because they're innocent, but because they're incompetent, and how there's so much hope for all of us in the midst of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that's right.
Um,
Children are not innocent. Yeah, yeah,
we have them, we know.
yeah, that ends quickly. Yeah. There's so much there. Yeah, I think I love that story about was it your son who said that with the song? Yeah, I think that there's so much there, and I want to say like a lot of modern Christianity. We found ourselves, I'm going to say, following uh, product Jesus rather than Rabbi Jesus. Of like,
Yeah,
and we're so hyper fixated on what we get from Jesus rather than like following Jesus. And those two uh, curate a very different sort of Christianity that is kind of all what we're talking about here. But yeah, I'm gonna have to look. I'm gonna have to look that song up. Speaking of, you kind of are grabbing some in later chapters. I'm gonna say around like the spiritual myths around change and limits, and you write at one point about um yeah, a gluten allergy and how the pastor's wife wanted to like pray that out of you kind of moment, which I can totally relate to. And I've witnessed this a lot, and how every life hurdle is something we attempt to like mustard seed pray our way out of. And so, but there is a tension there, I think. Yeah, and I am curious, like legit, like how do we hold that tension between that which it would be great to leave behind, and what else might be better, maybe embracing. And anyway, those are hard conversations, I think, too, and maybe no easy answers, but
such important ones, though, right? Especially in the church when even just reading through the witness of scripture, we have Jesus healing blind men and Jesus healing a bleeding woman and Jesus raising a dead girl from her deathbed. And then there are stories of Jacob wrestling with an angel and then walking with a limp for the rest of his life. So why are some people healed and not others? Is it faith? Did you not pray
Mhm.
enough? Are you doomed to this type of, terrible aging decline for the rest of your life? And just get on board. That's what's happening. And I think that's an important question. And that is where some of
Mhm.
that curiosity comes into, because in that conversation with that woman, she was like, we need to pray that out of you. And I was like, great. And then we'll pray the glasses off your face. And she was like, that is not how it works. I was
Nuh-uh.
like,
Did you
well,
say
like
that?
the same thing. Shouldn't have said it.
That's
Um,
amazing.
that's not my finest hour. I run the
Yeah.
patience runs thin. But instead, if there had been a curious question of, what has this been like for you to live with this frustrating and socially isolating and expensive ailment? But it wasn't that. It was like, oh, you must not have prayed hard enough. I have a dear friend who has chronic migraine headaches, and we went to a church together in Chicago for a long time, and she would go up for prayer every Sunday. They had prayer ministers on the side. They would pray for her every Sunday. And the headaches didn't change. And it's now 20 years later, and she still has the headaches. And what she loses patience with in the midst of it are, yes, the headaches themselves, but also so many well meaning Christians who are like, well, did you fill in the blank? Did you pray hard enough? Did you talk to Jesus? Is there unrepentant sin in your life? Not to mention all the people who have did you try this magic essential oil and whatever,
Hmm.
and so instead, to come to people who are seeking healing with those gentle, curious questions. And often that question is, where is God for you in the midst of this pain? How has God met you in your suffering? Um, because the question of why are some people healed in this life and others not is it's an impossible question. There are things in my life I haven't been healed of, and things in my life I have. And I don't know why one is one and one is the other. But
Hmm.
that compassion of Jesus, who never goes to people and says, if you just said 5 Hail Marys, we wouldn't be in this situation. Buck up, little camper. But instead, I love the story of the bleeding woman. I think it's Mark 4, who just reaches out and touches the hem of his garment, and Jesus turns and knows that power has gone out from him. And the first thing he says to her is not, "What have you done? Now I'm unclean." Da 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 da. The first thing he says is daughter. Like, he calls her by name. And I think that's how God meets us in our suffering. Um, but yeah, there are no easy answers, and I think Christians get themselves in some really unhelpful traps when we try to oversimplify things that are just not that simple. I had a publicist for a while. He is no longer with me. Was always like, "You're always writing about these like hard things, and we're Christians. We're supposed to be overcomers." And I was like, "Yeah, you and I disagree about that. Like, I don't think that's how it works.
Yeah.
I don't think that
Yeah.
Christianity is a math problem of 2 + 2 equals victory in Jesus. I think,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's the narrative of like overcoming and escaping. That's done some real damage, and not and no one here is saying like we're not overcoming quote unquote death, but
right.
but what we are saying is that we're still human beings who are aging and dying. And that's sort of what I was saying about the product Jesus versus the rabbi Jesus. Like, Jesus did age and then, didn't die from aging, but then died, and said, carry your cross and follow me and all of that. And so, yeah, yeah, yeah. So, kind of along the same vein, later in your chapter on water, you're kind of talking about that sort of myth of that thing we always get quoted of like God never gives us more than we can handle, which is, not in the Bible,
Not
but
in the Bible.
yeah, you're right.
Stop quoting
This
it. It's not there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But so I'm quoting you, top of 131, but all good things must have their limits. This far you may come and no farther, God says to the sea in the book of Job. And he says the same to us. We have limits, we are finite beings. The notion that God never gives us more than we can handle isn't actually in the Bible, despite common cliches to the contrary. And I thought that was so good naming, and you talk a little bit about sort of like soundbite Christianity, and yeah, I wonder, yeah, if you wanted to say any more on that, because I thought that was really good.
Yeah, I mean, it sells well, right? To be like, we have no limits. We are invincible. And yeah, it's our lived experience is very different than that. And God says to the sea, "This far and no farther," and yet sometimes the sea does overcome its bounds, and we see that, right, with the earthquake years back in Japan, and the tsunami, and the devastation that happens when things push beyond their limits. But there is this mythology right now, especially in the world of tech and AI, that the future is limitless and humans can transcend their own bounds. And there's that man who's always in the news who's going to live forever, and is
Yeah.
harvesting his own kids' blood cells, and just all this. And it's like, to what end? I think I'm paraphrasing C.S. Lewis, but he said, he wrote something about how many people long for immortality who don't know what to do with a rainy afternoon. And the rainy
Ooh,
afternoon is the
that's
good stuff,
so
right?
good.
It's the, how do we live in the place where God has placed us? I just finished this book tour, and it was so lovely. And I met so many lovely, interesting people. And at the end, I was like, I just want to be home. Like, I don't know what's happening in
Yes.
my own garden. I wasn't there for my son's orchestra concert. Like, what I want is to be with my people, because at
Hmm.
the end of the day, in a certain way, all hope is local. All ministry is local, all
Yeah.
salvation is local. And so how can we accept these things not as, oh, boo-hoo, God has
Yeah.
drawn in these boundaries, but oh, delight. God has given me
That's
these
right.
boundaries.
Yes. Yeah, I think too we've become so dopam we get all these dopamine hits and we're just and we're so busy and we've scrolled too much and that scrolling is rewiring our brains. But it's just like it's kind of empty good in a way and
Yes.
and you can be busy, you can just busy yourself until you die and then take a brief breath at the end and realize that maybe you regret it all, even if it
Yeah.
was good, because um, that doesn't mean that you were present. And I think that I just can't help but wonder if like presence is the ultimate gift, right? And
Mm.
if we're just going, like change is going to catch up with us anyway, but man, what a shame if it all we had the life was lived, but we weren't present for any of it.
Yeah.
And and so much of what I see, in the mirror half the time, but around me is this temptation of like, oh, this weekend I'm gonna get presents this weekend, or like this summer, or
Mm.
whatever, and rather than slowing it down, rather than taking a breath.
Yeah.
And one of the books I loved in the last couple years was The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, because
Mm.
I think that there's so much there around the gift of slowness.
Mhm.
And even recently in my own life, like all this stuff that I'm doing that I'm so busy with, I love doing. That doesn't mean I
Mhm.
should do it, and that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that like some of this, I gotta say no to. Because what I really want to do, like you said, like I just kind of want to be home right now, kind of want to be with my kids, kind of want to slow it down. And I always think of this old like Reliant K song, the Jefferson Airplane, and he's like, I just want to. He's like, eat cereal and stare out the window. Like, yeah, give me some of that. I'm also an introvert, so that's helpful. But
Yes,
uh,
same.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Makes me very
yeah.
happy you quoted Reliant K. I'm married to a ska guy. We took my 13-year-old son, the first concert we took him to was a Five Iron Frenzy reprise, and he was like, "This is amazing." We're like, "Yeah, we're raising
That's
you right, babe. This is the this is
that's
the
right.
whole purpose."
Welcome. Yeah, yeah,
Right? You have arrived. He's like, "What are those people doing?" We're like, "That's called skanking. We'll teach you. It's fine." It's
right.
a very, very particular form of dance. So
Oh my
Caleb, what
gosh.
are your hopes for this book? If you could, as this book just gets its sea legs and heads out into the world, what do you hope it accomplishes?
Mm, yeah, it's a lot different than my earlier first book was Garbage Theology, and it was very much like
Which is such a good
um
title, by the
uh,
way. What a great title.
thanks. Yeah. It's funny because I can't use the hashtag on Facebook because it's always flagged as hate speech. But yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of
Note
fun, but
to
it's all
self.
about, yeah, that's right. It's all about action, and here's what you can do. And there's so many things. And so, but this book is more about asking different questions and trying to think about the postures in which, so I hope that, the takeaways, though, I do think are very tangible, but they have, um, more to do with less and less to do with more.
Mhm.
And that, like, yeah, kind of like we're saying, like, what would it look like for me to do some pruning, to
Mhm.
slow it down into, I think once we start sort of put on those lenses of finitude, I'm going to
Yeah.
say, like, we really start to see all the areas of our lives that that we are bumping up against, I'm going to say, like, God's gift of limitation in our life. And we're trying
Yeah.
to jump higher than gravity. And,
Yeah.
I write a lot about, I think gravity is love. I think that this is
Mm.
actually a very loving boundary that we've been given, and obviously would not exist without. But yeah, and I've even talked with friends of like, yeah, I mean, you see it everywhere of like, oh, we really wanted to get an electric car, but if we did that, we'd have to stop every 100, 200 miles and recharge. Like, oh yeah, it would actually slow you down. Like, and you can just
Hmm.
keep tracing that back of like we used to ride horses and we had to feed them and like care for them, and it's like and now you're seeing in the other direction with AI, um, and these data centers of that are eating the world, that are just
Mm.
eating the world like a bag of candy, and just so that we can get where we're going even faster.
Yeah.
And so,
And eliminate all of the learning that happens in the process, right? All these studies coming out about college kids writing papers with AI who learn nothing. Like you learn through the
yeah,
struggle. It's snipping over open the chrysalis. The butterfly won't fly. Like it's the
yeah,
struggle that the strength is formed, and we're trying to eliminate the struggle.
yes. Oh, I love that, the chrysalis analogy. Yes, yeah. And yeah, yeah, yeah. So I wonder what and I need to curate on this more, but like what it would look like to do kind of like personal assessments of finitude for the
Mm,
places in our lives where yeah, where we can lean into that.
mm,
I think is helpful.
mm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, a reminder to my listeners, because your listeners know who you are, but this is Caleb Cray Haynes. The book is Earthbound Christian, Flourishing Within Limits in the Age of Infinite Growth. You can get it anywhere books are sold. And if you want to be less evil, you can get it somewhere like bookshop.org,
There you
where you
go.
don't
There you
have
go.
to support the evil
Uh,
overlords.
Yeah, I love that so much. All right, I gotta do yours now. You are also listening to author Courtney Ellis and her new book that apparently came out the same day, Weathering Change, Seeking Peace Amid Life's Tough Transitions. And there's no shortage of tough transitions out there, friends. So embrace that. So much fun. I've got notes like legit all through this book. So thank you so much for that gift and this gift of this really covers this cool conversation that like and I should have mentioned earlier that the reason we connected is because we got like similar shout outs from Arasha and our
Yeah.
friend Ben Lowe who endorsed your book, endorsed my book. So I feel like right now we got to endorse Arasha USA and
Yes.
say, friends, if you're not connecting with Arasha, then you're missing out on the juice there because they are just wonderful.
Yeah, Christian conservation ministry, thoughtful, not based on guilt, just doing good work out there in the
Yes.
world. Caleb,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
so
yeah.
glad you're out there and you're writing books. Your ministry is a great encouragement to me. So a reminder to your listeners to check out the I'm gonna get it wrong, ecoChristian podcast.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and and the name of mine again is for your listeners is the thing with feathers. So
The
if you're
thing
ever
with
out
feathers.
in California, come hang out. My husband and I'll take you to see some birds.
Yeah, that's what's up. I was hoping to wear some feathers for the occasion, but it totally slipped my mind. Uh,
I mean, this is only audio, so we can make up whatever.
uh,
Caleb is covered in feathers. It's really weird. I wasn't going to say
yeah, that's
anything.
right. No, that
Feathers
just a
everywhere.
big bird situation.
It's
Yeah,
very yellow
awesome.
right now in the studio. Oh,
Love
Caleb,
it.
thank you
Love it.
for
Thank
having
you.
me on your show.
All right. Stay tuned because we will quickly return with some really great content here in just a couple months. In the meantime, for this summer break, I'm going to leave you with what may be, I mean, honestly, perhaps the most challenging eco tip for some of us yet. And that, friends, has to do with air conditioning. By 2050, worldwide energy demand for space cooling is expected to triple. Like, since most of the world's electricity is generated by burning fossil fuels, the increased use of AC will lead to higher carbon emissions, and then as temperatures continue to rise, this becomes yet another feedback loop. So, one of the most important things we can personally do is set our thermostats in the summer to more moderate indoor temperatures. Think like 78 degrees Fahrenheit. And I know, just hearing me say that, some of you guys are like, well, I'm out. But friends, consider it. I mean, when you're home, like, and raising the thermostat just a few degrees when you leave home as well. Okay? I mean, come on, people. Whose house is this? Who are the people leaving home and still cooling their home so dramatically? Also, why do I have to wear a sweater in your house or anytime I go out to a restaurant in summer? It ain't right. You know what I'm saying? Also, consider smart thermostats or the type of units that you're using, or maybe when was the last time your unit was serviced. All these little things actually make up to be a pretty gargantuan use of our energy, even individually in our own homes. And so, but also think about your workplace. What's going on there? Your church building, ain't nobody there. What's going on over there? What are we doing with our energy, friends? And this also saves us money. Mo moolah. Are you with me? So there's so much more that could be said here, but maybe consider this as a bit of a personal challenge this summer to confront your HVAC norms. I realize that, this could be a hard one, especially as Americans. We've become really dependent on lots of cold air. But what would it look like to, even think about your body, to get your body more aligned with climate appropriate temps, to feel resilience in your body. And remember, underneath these tips, underneath this conversation is not shame, but it's grace and it's invitation, friends, and it's joy. So much love, my friends. See you on the other side.